So we've already worked on engagement training where we're getting him conditioned to the sound that predicts a reward. This way we can use that sound when we start teaching him new behaviors. A fun little exercise to kind of demonstrate how effective markers can be is I'm just gonna walk away from him and you're gonna make sure he can get to me so the leash doesn't get tight. And I'm not gonna give him any sort of signal or cue. I'm just gonna wait till he sits. The moment he sits, I'm gonna use the terminal marker free. I'm gonna move back, I'm going to reward him, then I'm gonna walk back and I'm gonna stand still again. And what you're gonna see is you're gonna see him come up, he's gonna think about it. He might sit right away, but we'll see. He's gonna think about it, then he's going to sit. Once he sits, I'm gonna mark that behavior again and I'm gonna do it over and over until he walks up and sits right away. So you can kind of see how the dog is quickly able to connect the behavior to the marker, which predicts the reward. And then I'm gonna have you give it a shot before we start luring him into different commanded positions. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, Storm. So I'm just gonna let him know I got some food, because he likes food. And then I'm just gonna stand back over here. And I'm waiting for him to sit. Free. And now I'm gonna reward him, and then I'm gonna walk back this way and I'm gonna wait for him to sit again. And watch when I say the word. So he's not gonna get the treat for that, but I'm not gonna do anything. So he's free. There we go. When he sits, I mark again and I move away. And he's gonna stop jumping too, because he's gonna realize that doesn't work. He's trying on the other hand. Free. Very nice, buddy. He's trying it again. Free. Very good. I love the little noises Frenchies make. It's amazing. So we'll give you a few. So walk away so he has to walk to you and then wait till he sits. Once he sits, mark with F-R-E-E.
Free.
And then move back and reward. Beautiful. And then move away from him again. And just wait.
Free.
So you notice on that one, you paired it. You went free.
Yeah.
Try to say it free, then move.
Then move,
yep.
okay.
Do you need a couple more treats?
Free.
You had to think about it for a second, right? People
So
want to move at the same time. Yeah, so you're like, watch how I just say it, then I move. Free. Now I move.
It's free, then
so
move.
there's a slight pause from when you say the word to when you move. Because again, we have to separate it for the dog. If you move at the same time you say it, he won't hear the word. And we really want to connect the word to the marker, or it being a marker, so he knows that that means he's getting the reward.
Free.
There we go. Because all we really have to do to connect the behavior to a reward is that the dog knows the behavior triggers the reward.
Free.
And so even if you just moved the second he sat down, he would still connect that to the reward, because he goes, I sit, you move, I get the treat. But we really want to make sure we have him conditioned to those markers, because he's not always going to see you.
Yeah.
And he's not always going to know the reward's coming, because his mind might be somewhere else. So like when you're doing that free shaping we were talking about earlier, when you're trying to create a proactive dog, you're hanging out inside the house, he goes to his bed. You want him to know when he gets on that bed and he hears free, he's like, oh, I did something right, and comes running over. So it is really important that we get him conditioned to that sound. But what I'm trying to explain is, like right now, even if I don't say anything, I just wait till his butt hits the ground and I move, he'll still connect it, right? But again, we're trying to get him really conditioned to free. Good boy. All right, so that makes sense?
Yeah.
All right, now what we're gonna do is we're going to use a concept known as luring. And just like we talked about earlier, again, we're using continual reinforcement. So we're rewarding every single correct repetition. And all I wanna do is I wanna be able to show him a physical cue, and then I'm going to have you do it after we can make sure he can complete it. Okay. So I show him the physical cue. Once he does it, I mark and then I reward. If I notice he's struggling to figure out what I want, I'm going to reward him for putting in effort. He's like sitting right now, he's like, dude, I thought we came up with this deal. So I want him to know that he can put in effort. Even if he doesn't figure it out right away, we don't want him to give up. Because sometimes people, for example, might be trying to get their dog to down, and they're doing this, they're making a bowl out of their hand, and so the dog's not laying down, and then they don't give it to the dog. And what happens? Eventually the dog goes, pfft, and they walk away. They're like, I can't get it. But he has really high food drive, so it's gonna make it extra easy for him. But that's something to keep in mind. If it seems like he's struggling to figure it out, reward him for putting in effort. But this is a common issue where people are trying to get their dog to down, but they're holding their hand like a bowl. If you place down a bowl of food, how does the dog usually eat the food? They stand up and they eat it.
Yeah.
Right? So if I want the dog to lay down, all I have to do, instead of keeping the bowl upright, I reverse the bowl. I make the bowl face upside down, and the dog will go under to try to get to the treat, and they'll naturally lay down. So we know he can do a sit, and I know you've worked on plenty of other things as well, but we're gonna work on the down. So I'm gonna have him do it, then I'm gonna have you do it. So watch how I bring my hand down. Here's the bowl. Now I'm just gonna reverse it, make it upside down. Free. Once he lays down, I make the marker sound free, and then I give him the food. So I'm gonna make him get up, rotate my palm, free. Then I reward. Very nice, buddy. And I'm gonna do one more. Free. And notice I'm saying it once he lays down. That's when we want to mark. And going back to what I was saying earlier, technically during this stage, you don't have to mark the behaviors. But I always recommend it because you want to get good at your timing, saying the marker and then releasing. Because you're going to want to do this. You're going to want to go free and release as you say it. But you want to say the marker, then release.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah. Free.
Nice, excellent job on the timing. And again, that means release and reward, and we're using the terminal marker, even though he's not in a stay. He's coming to me because he's like, dude, you got food. You can call him to. You can make noise or whatever. Let's do one more of those.
Free.
Beautiful. All right, you're a natural. What happens a lot of times is the dog's already sitting, so then the human goes, how do I get the dog to sit when he's already sitting? Easy. We walk backwards, and then we lift. Free. Walk backwards, lift. Free. He sits fast too. You're a good boy. Free. Very good. You want to give it a go?
Yeah.
You have some already?
Nah. So, okay.
Yeah, so just start walking backwards, and then, now, you did good. Go ahead and reward him.
Free.
He's like, what's up? Did you see him? He's like, they pay me. So think about there's like an invisible connection from your hand to the dog's face. And if you get too far away, it'll break. The closer it is, the stronger the connection. So look how my hand's right in front of his face.
Okay.
And then I lift. Free. And that
Okay.
makes it much easier. Give it another go.
Storm. Oh, free.
You almost had him do it down there too.
Free.
It's harder than it looks, right?
I'm trying to lift.
Yeah, so I'm just putting it in front of his face, walking. So I'm getting him to walk. Let's try that first. Just get him to walk forward.
Okay.
I hope he has a big appetite.
He does.
There we go, good. And he's almost starting to do a little prance, adorable. Frenchies are like one of the cutest dogs. But what helps is these are high quality, delicious, biologically appropriate dog food. So it's minimal ingredients, and then it's raw, freeze-dried, high quality. So this is like what I like to use when I'm training my dogs.
Okay.
And what's also really nice about it, so like when we're doing that continual reinforcement, I like to use the dog's kibble, because if you're using something like this and that's the only thing the dog's eating, you're gonna go through a lot of bags. But what's great is when we're first training, we're using continual reinforcement, so I use mealtime as training time. If I'm gonna do a couple sessions, I get the dog's bowl of food and I'll train with that. And then in the evening, I'll get the dog's food and I'll train with that. So I'm making the dog work for everything. But what's really nice in the beginning, even when you're using kibble, I like to throw a handful of this in the mix, because when the dog randomly gets an extra high value reward during training, it ups their motivation. So you don't even have to give them that many when you first start out. When I transition them to a full raw diet, that's what I like to do with my dogs, then I will use this exclusively for training. But in the beginning, when I'm using a kibble, because you can't train with raw, when I'm using their kibble, I mix that with it.
Okay.
And it ups the motivation, because they're like getting the kibble, cool, and then they get this really high value reward, and they're like, that was awesome. And then they start training again. They're like, when am I going to get that other really high value one? So it keeps them extra motivated. It's a really cool trick. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to incorporate a couple other commands. I like to teach a spin, but it's one of those things where you have to make sure you like it, because dogs usually like it. So they offer it up, kind of like roll over. You were talking about that earlier. So dogs often like this, and they'll come up to you and they'll just spin. So you want to make sure it is something that you like, but it's very easy to teach. We just get the dog to walk in a circle, free, and then reward. Now, since he's very food motivated, you see he's making the full circle, but there's some dogs, and he's also confident. There's other dogs that aren't as confident, and when you try to bring your hand over their head, they'll move away and they won't do it, or they'll give up. They don't have as much perseverance or food drive as he does. And in that case, I'll reward, yes, just for the dog turning their head, just putting in a little bit of effort. Then I might go, yes, and reward the dog right there. Or I can use the terminal marker free as well. At this point, it doesn't matter because we're not doing any stays. And then eventually we can do the whole circle free and then mark and reward. So I think this is enough for him right now. We're gonna make him too full and he's not gonna be very motivated. We wanna make sure we always end on a good note. So how he's looking at you right now and he's saying, are we still training? That's what we want. We want to end the session when the dog is still interested and invested in the training. We don't want to stop when the dog is bored. That's not a good time to stop. We want to stop when they're invested and interested because they're going to be even more interested to come back and train later. It's something I'm often asked when you see videos with Ari or Charlie, they're always really excited to train because I always made training the most fun. Training was the best. That's when we're having the most fun. We're doing treats, we're playing with toys, all this engagement work. So then when I bring them out now, much older dogs, 1.6, 1.7, they still look like puppies, super stoked and excited to train. And that's what we want. So any questions?
No.
Then I think this is good for this session.
Perfect.